Hi, I'm back. And I'm back for a good reason. I would like to introduce the next speaker. And surprise, surprise, the next speaker will be Denis Prylutskyi, my manager and director of PMO at SoftServe. And I will not tell you more because you will hear all about it in his speech. The topic is very revolutionary. I am excited to know all about it. And so, Denis, welcome. And the word to you.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Yes. Thank you to Igor, and maybe some of you already knew me before this conference, and sorry for staying that late on your screens as a host, as an organizer, and as a speaker now. Let me just sum up some important topics about me. So I am quite long in the IT industry. So I'm maybe about 30 years in IT. Last 20 plus years I'm doing project management. And I'm not an acting project manager at the moment, hopefully, any longer. But what do? I run the project management office at SoftServe. And I help other project managers to become better than I am. So I also an author of multiple courses of project managers for advanced PMs, for beginner PMs. I'm a founder of online school of project management, and I quite often appear in some conferences, especially related to project management. And today I have a topic to talk about you. I want to talk about neuromanagement. You know, sounds exciting, I hope. And I will tell you more about what this neuromanagement is all about, but talking about why have I chosen this? Because as I already mentioned at the beginning of this conference, you know, many things in project management are changing over the time. And these are not just techniques or methodologies or frameworks or tools or whatever. There are some conceptual things that are changing. And they are changing not directly in the project management, but they do affect project management. And one of those changes is the neuroscience that opened our eyes on how our brain works and what does it mean? What does it mean in terms of concepts of managing people? So let's consider how do we manage people now. The way we manage them today is we try to influence their decision making. So they do something that we need them to do. And how do we do this? We tell them the reason and try to convince them that this reason is meaningful. For instance, we can tell the basic thing. If you won't do this, we will fire you. This is the reason if you want to stay in the job. You should do this, otherwise you have a risk of being fired. This is the reason that influences the decision making. Or maybe better one, if you will do something, you will get a promotion. So again, we try to influence the decision making. In this case, we want the person to choose between do something or don't do something, to choose to do this because we need it. We provide a good reason. So the promotion is really good reason, making a career, becoming a little bit more successful, is a good reason to do the choice we actually need. How to increase the quality? What is the difference between good management and bad management in terms of managing people? Good managers just provide better reasons. And the quality of a reason means how convincing it is. And so if it's convincing, then it could be easily accepted. And this is what we need. So what we try to do, we try to choose the best reason, the most convincing reason, which will work the best. And if we are the good managers, we know what to choose. If we are bad managers or worse managers, we either don't know at all or might pick the wrong one. So training as a project manager in managing people was, by today, mainly based on understanding what reasons are good, what reasons are worse. So in order to improve the reason, what do? We think that the most convincing reasons are based on facts, which are linked by some really straightforward logic. So, and if we pick some facts and connect them with a proper logic, we're going to make the logical chain that would align the perception the way we need it. So making a good reason means picking good facts and choosing the good logic, which is good, which is a working algorithm. And as you might know, this is something that all managers dream about, to make management an algorithm. And it sounds like an algorithm, why not? However, it's not working well. And I will tell you today why. But before we switch to this, one more thing I would want to point out. So how our reasons work, what actually we try to achieve by making the reason is we try to reduce the counter-arguments by making them just contradictory to the common sense. If we just make all the potential counter-arguments making no sense or not sharing the common sense, whatever it means, then most probably we're going to convince the person because there are no counter-arguments. You provide some facts, you connected them with some logic, all sounds reasonable, all sounds great and making sense, so there are no counter-arguments, so what can you do? The only thing you can do is to accept this reason, and once you accept the reason, what does it mean? That you should do the job. This is what we need. So this is like the way most of us manage people today. But one day, the rules of this game change. So what is changed and what is the source of the change? The source of the change is neuroscience. You know that people knew about anatomy and functional areas of a brain for very long. It started many years ago when Leonardo started analyzing corpses of people and opening their heads, looking at their brain in order to detect some brain diseases leading to some behavior. So, and even Leonardo already knew and created the first map of anatomy of a brain, which zones of a brain are responsible for what functions of a human being. There are many areas. There are motor area, sensory area, temporal lobe, brainstem. But two areas which we're going to focus on today are front lobe and the cerebellum. So the front lobe, according to the knowledge of medicine, is a zone that is mainly responsible for problem solving, making good reasons, like behavior, choosing the behavior or the mood, and we thought that it was the decision-making center. And the cerebellum was mainly responsible, we thought it was mainly responsible for motoric functions like movements and all this stuff. So this was true for many, many years. And based on that, all the therapy was done to people, and all the diseases which were related to some dysfunctioning of a human body or the human being were treated as some negative things happening to the specific areas of a human brain. With an appearing of functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is fMRI, we were able to also track where the signal is spreading in the brain. And you know, the brain is an electric device which is driven by chemical reactions. So the electrical signal spreads through different areas of the brain depending on what we are doing, what tasks we try to solve. So using fMRI, we were able to check what areas of the brain are involved in doing this or that functions. And it was quite interesting experiments when you put a person in such a tube and you provide a task to do something, and then you just track how the signal spreads. With this way, we've proven many, many things about anatomy of a human brain. But one sort of experiments resulted with really surprising things. When the task was to make decisions, the signal was spreading strange. Let me put it this way. As you remember, the decision making should happen in the front lobe that we already knew. But for some reason, it was the last area of a human brain where a signal came to, when over the decision-making process. So it's ended up there, not started from there. And it looked strange because, you know, when you make a decision, you should make a decision. You should firstly involve the area responsible for decision-making, and maybe then it would spread throughout your brain, but not the opposite. And you know where the signal started to spread from? For some reason, it was cerebellum, the movement mechanism, the motion controller. Why? How come the decision-making is linked with motion control? It sounds really weird. And neuroscientists started exploring this fact. And one day they understood one thing. And they made an article. The Brain magazine is the most famous neuroscience magazine in the world. And in, it was 2006, right? 2006, when they published the article where they said that the traditional teaching that the cerebellum is purely a motion control device seems no longer valid, if ever been. And for some reason, it seems like the cerebellum is also responsible for cognitive processing and emotional control. So they just realized these things. And by the way, if you will have a look at this anatomy of the brain, you will see that the frontal lobe is also involved in movement functions. So it seems like movement is somehow linked, but this is just a hypothesis. This is not the truth that I can share with you. But anyway, the cerebellum is not the motion control. It's not only the motion control. It is involved in motion control, but it has another function. which is cognitive processing and emotional control. What does that mean? Remember that I told you that decision making starts in there, starts in the cerebellum. It starts from emotions. So scientists started investigating this, and what they have found was just changing the paradigm of understanding the way people make decisions. Because, as I mentioned from the beginning, we think that decisions are based on the facts and the logic, which are some things what are related to the front lobe. So these things are being processed in there. But for some reason it ends up there. And it starts in the center of emotions. So it seems like emotions are involved. And moreover, they're not involved. This is just the center of decision making. They start making there. So, and then they understood the decision making process looks like this. So if you will just try to remember what you remember about the facts, you might forget the names of people involved. You might forget the place where something happened. You might forget when it was, what was the date, what was the year. What you do remember for every memory you have is whether it was good or not for you. Did you like it or don't you like it? So this is so named an emotional charge of your memories. We store this emotional charge in our brain for every event occurred to us. And actually, when we make a decision, our brain works like this. We try to repeat something that looks similar to our positive emotional experience in the past and avoid doing something that looks like the negative experience in the past. That's why we start from checking emotions. If we try to make it a scheme, so we have some situation today, now, we check, we try to find something similar, and it's not something that you control. This is something that happens in your brain and without your control at all. So it's like it's a pure neural network, in fact. So we check the memories. We try to find something that looks like similar to the situation now. We imagine we can find some previous experience that is similar, maybe not the same, maybe even not close, but it is being recognized as similar by our brain. And we don't control this. We do not choose what is similar, what is not. It's a process behind our control. So next, what we do, from what is similar, we read what was the emotional charge, whether it was good or not for us, or bad. If it was bad, we don't do like we did. If it was good, we do same as we did. And then the signal comes to the front lobe, the logical center. And we put the logic behind this decision. So we try to feel the decision with the logic in order to socialize this decision. So we should share our decisions to others, explaining why have we chosen doing so, and why haven't we changed it doing something else. And for this purpose, we do need the logic, because the reason I feel it's wrong, it's not a really convincing one. However, talking about the neuroscience, this is the most convincing one. But in business world, you know, if you will tell your manager that you feel something is wrong and you feel that you should do something and you have no good reason for that, just your feelings, most probably you're not going to make the great career today. But maybe in the future things will change. Who knows? So the logic is a language which we use to translate the decision to the world so they understand why. But it's not something that is influencing the decision itself. Well, this changes a lot, doesn't it? If we do not use the logic to make decisions, what's the point to influence this logic in order to manage people? So remember that I told you that we try to influence the decision making by providing our logic, our facts, and our reasoning instead of others. So we try to convince them by replacing their logic by our logic. But this doesn't affect decision making at all, as I just told you. So this way of managing people doesn't work efficiently. It does a little, but not efficiently. There are much more efficient ways. And here we go to so-named Neurosocial Paradigm. The way people make behavioral decisions is a function of their context, of their own context, their relations with others, and personalized perception of reality. This is also one more important thing to mention, that, you know, I emphasize this common sense, common sense, common sense. You see a lot of those stickers saying common sense. There is no common sense, unfortunately, because there is no common. Each of us perceives this world through just our personal prism of our personal experience, of our personal knowledge, of who were our parents, where we grew at, who were our friends, what happened to us, who we are, and many, many things which are so personal. And the mixture of all these aspects is so unique that results that none of us perceived the world the same way. Just none of us. There are people who are close and we feel them. We feel those people like we, you know, this feeling then you meet the person and you start talking to this person and you just feel that this is my person, this is my guy. I understand him, her, whoever, really, really well. We are like brothers and sisters. What does it mean? It means that your context is close, your scheme is close. But again, it's not the same. Even these people have differences and they perceive the world differently. And there is no one who perceives the world the way you do. And if you expect people to take your logic, to take your perception of the world and rules of your personal world and apply to their world, it will never happen. Just never. Whoever you are, whether you are the project manager or C-level manager, whoever, this won't work. People won't change their worlds, won't replace their worlds with your one. They live in their world, and you should realize this, and you should adjust to this. And you should follow this neurosocial paradigm, that they are in there. They are in their own world, and you are in your world. So what you try to do when managing people, you need to establish the link between those two worlds instead of modifying the world of others, which is a traditional way of managing people. Moving forward, one more powerful thought for you is that our self is not actually an author of our thoughts. The decisions we make are know-how based on our thoughts, on our logic, on our reasoning. We do not influence it at all. Instead, our thoughts are defining who we are. And this is also a really, really new concept. If we don't follow the neuroscience, we never think like this. So when we are talking about mental well-being or things like this, like Renata told us today, this is really important, because if you know that your mental is actual center of who you are, you better keep it healthy and make sure everything is fine with this, because otherwise you're gonna have problems. This is not the opposite. So you might be okay while your mental health is bad. It can't be. You are the result of your mental health. It can't be that it's opposite. And maybe the last thing I want to mention today is the world is mental. The actual world is mental. It's dramatically different from what we are thinking about it. And if we want to live in the real world, in the mental world, it requires from us our ways of thinking and acting, totally different. So if you're interested, you can find quite a lot of materials on internet about that, or maybe you follow me. I'm going to just continue sharing this topic over the time, or you might stay in the old paradigm, trying to manage people by the way that it's not so efficient considering the neuroscience. But I believe that one day people will realize that the world is mental, and they will all accept that. And in this moment, management of people will change dramatically. So you might be either a pioneer or the follower. You might be early adopter or late adopter. It's up to you. Most probably, you won't have a chance to avoid. It seems like this. So I wish you all to think about that. Being an early adopter is always better. Being late adopter is also well. So thank you for attention, and thank you for attending our conference.
Yeah. So it was very interesting, and I'm excited because we have quite a few questions here for Dennis. And if you don't mind, I'll start with the one that I find the most interesting now, is how to balance between feelings and logic. Can you give us a few tips?
Okay, it's a really great question. You shouldn't balance. You have both. Both are parts of you. So you shouldn't choose between the feelings and the logic. You should somehow get to use them both. So you know, what does balancing mean? That it's neither one or another, or so you just find the compromise between them. So your logic tells this, your feeling tells that, and you find some compromise between them. This is not the way to do. You shouldn't find this balance. You should somehow get to use both feelings and the logic. You should be able to compile them rather than find the balance between them. So it's not about balancing, it's more about compiling. How to compile them? It's a trick.
Yeah, embracing both sounds like a hint too. Okay, I like the next question as much. So as an average project manager, I would like to ask you, how do you think the neuromanagement is applicable in my day-to-day routine activities?
So, you know, neuromanagement is not the process to follow. It's a philosophy to follow. So once you start treating your people, your subordinates, your reports, your associates, as self-thinking people making their own decisions without you to influencing them through the logic, so you better make sure that their context supports making decisions that you might love. So you create a context around them, not try to manage them by changing their mindset. So once you start doing this, this is the way to apply neuromanagement to your managerial work.
Yeah, okay, I get it. It's not a skill, it's not the process. But do you think some education and some proficiency in this area will be a requirement in project management job profiles of the future?
Absolutely, no doubts about that. You know, when I graduated from the university, my diploma work was about using neural networks for image processing. And at that time, it was 2000, it was like something not really popular. So artificial intelligence was not a hype at all. It was, I was looking like a geek. And actually, I've not chosen this topic for diploma from the available ones. I have negotiated with my university that I will pick this one because I'm so passionate about that. And they said, okay. So pity to hear that you don't like other topics, but if you are okay with this one, which sounds strange, okay, pick this one. And you know, now what I'm pity about, that I haven't chosen this as my way of further career. So I decided to leave the science and move to project management, to business. Maybe it was a wrong decision. It's not something that I'm pity about, but this maybe was something that was a good chance for me to be other person, maybe more successful, I don't know. So things that are not sounding like a super truth or a hype today might become a hype tomorrow. And talking about neuromanagement, I do believe it's going to be a hype next couple of years.
Yeah, I also feel like there's going to be a next wave of hype in project management. And that's great you mentioned artificial intelligence, because my next question is all about it. I've recently heard rumors that project managers can be easily substituted by neural networks and AI in the future decade or so. Do you think it's possible, and do you think it's happening at all?
You know, it might happen just in one case. If artificial intelligence will manage another artificial intelligence. In this case, might be. But while we are talking about managing real people, alive people, I'm not really sure it's going to happen. Because, you know, in order to manage people, you should be a human. So these people should perceive you as also a person having your mental world. We are social creatures, and we used to establish some links between those mental worlds. Our social activity is just all about this, is to making links between our mental worlds. And not sure you can create this link with a robot, because you don't feel the robot having a mental world. So I'm not really sure it's going to happen while we are managing people, but maybe one day AI will just manage another AI this might happen, I don't know.
Yeah, for what it takes in order to communicate well, we have to be at least from one species. And thank you for your responses, Denise. And that's all questions I had for you today. So thank you for the great speech, and thanks everyone for joining and listening.